Protecting your finances as you age should be a major concern for you. And if it's not, you need to change that mindset because your assets as you age become more vulnerable. And in this video, we're going to walk through some strategies that you can implement. Even though you think you may not be vulnerable now, that time will come. So let's make sure we protect you before it happens. Before we jump into the content, I just want to say thanks again for all your support. You guys have built a great community here. There's comments on every video, supporting each other, giving advice. That's why we created this channel. But there's still about 2/3 of you that watch our videos that aren't subscribed. And I know a lot of you watch on TV and it's hard to subscribe, but take a moment right now, find a phone, a tablet, a computer, hit subscribe, join the channel, turn on the notification bell. We do release 2 videos every single week to help you get in a better spot for retirement, to give you knowledge, to equip you. That's what we're trying to do for you. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. Let's jump into the content. The first tip for you is you should have a trusted contact person listed on your investments or at your investment firm. So wherever you hold your investments, there's something called a trusted contact person. And for our clients that have investments at the few investment firms that we deal with, that's a requirement. They have to have that there. And the trusted contact person, this is not somebody that takes over control of your account or has any control of your account. They're there so that if something starts to happen to you mentally, physically, whatever it is, or there's a weird request, your advisor or your investment person will actually reach out to that trusted contact person saying, hey, Sally reached out through email or phone and said she needs a bunch of money. This is kind of out of the norm. Let's check in on this. So it's just kind of a backstop against a weird request. So think of it as like Equifax or TransUnion here in Canada, putting like a flag on your account. So if someone applies for credit, it's out of the norm, they got to kind of phone you and check in. That's the same idea with a trusted contact person. So if you don't already have it set up, or maybe you say, Adam, I have no idea, I've never heard of this, maybe I have it, maybe I don't know. Contact your investment firm, your advisor, to see if you have this set up. It's really the first line of defense, and it is becoming mandatory here in Canada. They have it in the US as well. It's a really good backstop. So make sure you have this set up. It's kind of the first line of defense. The second line of defense to protect your assets as you age would be to set up a power of attorney. This is someone that if you're unable to make the financial decisions on your own, they would step in and start taking over those financial decisions for you. Again, as you age, there's 2 decisions that you make on an ongoing basis that could be affected. And they're 2 separate documents that will guide who makes those decisions. One is a power of attorney around your assets and financial assets. The other one is around your healthcare. And you want to have both these documents set up. And so if you don't have an updated power of attorney and a living will or a living power of attorney, you want to make sure you get those set up. Again, if something happened to you physically, mentally, whatever, and you couldn't make these decisions on your own, who's making those for you right now? And do you have someone set up? You need to make sure. It's very important. I've seen this go the wrong way. It's not pretty. The wrong people are making the wrong decisions. They're not wishes that you had. The benefit of setting these documents up is to say, okay, I'm going to set up, my brother as my power of attorney. My brother, then I can talk to him and say, hey, here are my financial goals. If something happens to me, here's how I want you to carry it through. Same on the healthcare side. That's a big piece of it. If something happens to you, how do you want your healthcare treated and managed going forward, right? So A, set up the document, but B, have that conversation with that person. Have an ongoing conversation because your financial and healthcare needs or wants may change over time. So make sure that's a fluid conversation going forward. You also want to make sure your will is set up. Now, your will is more for when you pass away, but it is protecting your assets as you age, right? Part of aging is dying. And when you die, you're probably going to have some assets left over. And I know a lot of you are trying to get to, I want to die with 0. The reality is you're probably not going to die with exactly 0. And if you do, that was a little risky. So you want to make sure that you have a will in place. A will is going to say, when I pass away, here are the people or charities or what organizations that are going to get the assets that I have left in my estate. People always ask me, Adam, you list estate planning on your website, but I already have a will. So there's 2 parts of estate planning. Your will, which says, when I pass away, here's who's going to get whatever is left. The other part of estate planning is, let's make sure whatever is left is structured in the most tax efficient way possible. I think you and I can all agree, everyone watching this video would agree with me, that if we die with assets, we'd rather leave more money to family, friends, charities, organizations, people we care about, versus the CRA. And maybe there's someone watching this video that really wants to leave money to CRA. There's always that 0.1%. But the majority of us, we want to make sure we have that structure. So your financial planner needs to create strategy to make sure that whatever is left is created in a tax efficient manner. It's going to go past tax free to whoever you want to leave it to. And again, your will is going to say, here's who's going to get those assets. So make sure you have that set up. Now, a lot of you may have wills set up, but they're from like 20 years ago, or you've been divorced since, or there's been big changes. Your will may not even be active anymore, may be voided based on a circumstance that you've lived throughout the X amount of years since you've written it. So make sure you have an updated will. Again, you can do this with a notary, a lawyer, there's some online services. So whatever your budget is, find a means to get this done. Another layer to protect your assets as you age is to maybe set up a living trust. And we have a video coming out in a few days on trusts and how to set them up and when it makes sense. But have that open conversation with your financial planner or your tax accountant to say, here's where I'm at, here's where I'm looking to go. Does a trust make sense? And if it does, how do we structure this? Now, you have to remember there's tax benefits to a trust. There's some downsides to a trust as well on the tax side. There's a lot of ongoing costs to a trust. So again, walk through the process. Say, list the positives, list the negatives, see what the cost is, the tax benefit, the overall net money benefit to you or your estate. Run through that process. For some of you, it'll make sense. For some of you, it's not. But for those of you where it makes sense, a trust can be a great way to protect those assets as you move on with age. Another layer, and this is a really important one, is how and when are you going to kind of transfer some of your assets as you age? A lot of you will get into your 80s, maybe even into your 90s, and have a lot of assets still. You haven't burned down enough, or you just had a lot of assets to begin with, and you want to start shuffling this off. And there's a lot of assets that you'll carry into your 80s. Starts to make sense, especially as your health starts to deteriorate. You want to start passing some of those assets on to the people or organizations that you plan to pass them to anyway. If you die with some of these assets, it's going to be part of your estate. Now, I see this done wrong more than right. And what I mean by that is, dad's passed away, mom's still living, she owns the house, and she puts little Jimmy on the house. So little Jimmy owns 2% of the house. That can create issues. Again, putting your kids on your bank account may be a good solution, it may not, depends on the situation. But again, these are conversations that you need to have, right? This video isn't about here's all the answers, it's here's things you need to think about or have conversations with your financial planner to see the pros and cons. Does it make sense for you? Again, every situation is different, and I know you're probably tired of hearing that, but that's the reality. But again, how can you pass those assets to the people that are going to get them anyway to kind of avoid maybe probate, avoid some headache for your executor when you do pass away, maybe help them out earlier? Again, as you age and you have more money than you need, passing those assets earlier could be a huge beneficial and financial impact to your kids, to your grandkids, to charities, whoever you're passing that to get that earlier makes sense. I always say, for a 90-year-old to pass away and pass money to a 70-year-old and they hold on to the money till they're 90 and keep that swing of money in the upper echelon that makes no impact to generational wealth, that makes no sense to me. Start passing money earlier. And that's part of building a good financial and retirement plan, is to see, do I have enough or do I have too much? And if I have too much, maybe it becomes a tax liability to me that I could pass off to my kids or grandkids where they have mortgages at 4, 5, 6, 7%. And they can actually pay down the mortgage. So it's a net benefit to them, the net benefit to me because I'm offloading that tax, and it's money they're going to eventually get anyway. Again, this needs to be incorporated within your overall retirement plan. And if you need help building out a retirement plan for you, if you're sitting there saying, Adam, this kind of all makes sense, but I don't know how this all comes together, reach out to our office. We'll put the link below. parallelwealth.com/planning is all the information. We provide retirement planning for Canadians coast to coast. Doesn't matter where you live in Canada. You could live abroad if you plan to retire back to Canada. We can help you out as well. So a lot of people want to work with someone local. We have staff. We do everything remotely, but we do have staff in BC, Alberta, Ontario. But again, we do plans for everyone everywhere. So if you're looking for help on this, check out our website, give us a ring, let's connect. The last tip I have for you is communicate your plans. And the older generation is really bad at this. And it's quite costly, unfortunately, because a lot of people I talk to in their 50s and 60s, their parents are in their 70s, 80s, maybe 90s. They don't know what their parents have, what the plan is, do they have an updated will, because they don't communicate it. And it's a generational thing, and I get it, there's a lot behind there. I'm not going to unveil that curtain right now, but you want to make sure you communicate your plan to your kids, to your grandkids, to your executor, to whoever is kind of in your financial world. Don't keep your plan private. Families that have conversation about finances typically are in a better position later. Again, if you have a family member that passes away and no one knows the plan, if you've been part of that, you know how messy it can be. So my final tip for you is to make sure you have a great plan and then communicate that to the people around you that matter.